watched a video literally a week ago, and it was a Dr. Anna talking about how even the unvaccinated now are contaminated with this nanotechnology, and that everybody's got it, she said. And it disturbed me so bad, I started praying and asking, okay, do I have this crap in my body? And Saint Germain appeared to me, and he said, no, Scott, you're manifesting perfected DNA in your body. And I had recommitted to doing that because my 5 kids that had been vaccinated, they became literally little jerks. And they would tell me and their mother, you need to go get vaccinated. You don't have any excuse. You're the problem. You're the one creating this pandemic and all this crap that you hear on TV. They had just fed into it and were projecting it at us, and so I was like, crap. And so I asked Saint Germain, what do I do? And he said, do the 24-strand DNA manifestation in plural for your children, and follow it up with the decrees for putting my world in order in plural, and do the love meditation with them to bring them back to God. Because when they use this technology, they actually delete through CRISPR technology the God gene that connects us to the heavens. And we all have this gene, but if they delete it, it's gone. And people, they go atheist because they don't feel that connection with God anymore. And it's interesting how the whole planet shifted with this pandemic. And so I started doing it, and within 3 months my kids started becoming more loving, more kind, more human. And I was just like, wow, this is cool. So I started propagating it to everyone to use the plural DNA manifestation. And so he also said to do the love meditation, because love is the consciousness of God. And so with the love meditation, you bring God's love into you with every breath, and then you project it back to God, because that's a form of worship of God, is sending God's love back to God. Well, guess what I found out? Through the law of attraction, when you send that love, so you're breathing in God's love, bringing it into yourself, and then you shoot it back at God, guess what happens? You attract even more of God's love back to you. Literally, I was told 200 times the amount you send out to God, it comes right back to you. And so it shifts your consciousness into this love consciousness that is divine, and it makes you be a better human. And that's how the original humans were. They would do this interaction with God. And the reason God commanded us, and the first commandment was, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, and spirit. Because they taught me the difference between the soul and the spirit. The spirit comes from God. The soul is a creation we create from energy in our reptilian brain to conform to giving them our power. So the soul is like the little devil, in the old cartoons on your one shoulder. The spirit is like the little heavenly angel on your other shoulder. And if you follow that good angel, you're following the Spirit of God. If you follow that other one, you're following the soul energy, which is interesting, because our soul, it creates 2 minds. So you have your spiritual mind and your soul mind. And the soul mind, actually, you can choose to do things that are not accepted by God. And they count on you doing those kind of things to create more energy that is not godly. And so we as humans, we are creators. So we can create energy through God, the Spirit, or we can create energy through a source of not so much God's energy. Because, and they've made us think that the soul is actually came from God, but that's not true. The Spirit of God came to us, and that's where our spirit actually comes from, is from the Spirit of God. And it's an aspect of God. It's the spark of God within us to do good things, to do things that are right. The other energies are created from beliefs that are not from God. And science currently is a religion, believe it or not. And, you know, they're always, you know, Fauci always would get on TV and say, follow the science, you know. In other words, follow the religion of, you know, your double spine studies, but, you know, they make the science, they manipulate it any way they want because they do dry labs, all kinds of stuff. So, anyway, I'm done giving the lecture, but I do want to answer questions, because I think there was people who had questions. Anybody have questions on there?
There were a couple of questions, not on here, but from when we did the book club.
Okay.
So somebody asked, will people of Telos help humanity?
Okay, that's an interesting question. And when I first went to Mount Shasta, I had the intent to go down into the mountain and meet the Telos. And in fact, I used my kinesiology and everything to find the entrance up at Upper Panther Meadows. Go ahead.
Could you repeat the question again?
Oh, yeah, will people of Telos help humanity? So maybe you
Telos.
can explain who the people of Telos.
Yes. Now, Telos are the people living inside Mount Shasta. They're third and fifth dimensional beings, and they are living the laws of God. That's why they separated themselves from humanity. And they are divine beings. In fact, there's been several books written about the Telos by people up in Mount Shasta. They communicate with the people, and they communicated with me. And when I found the entrance, I sat and I meditated, and they said, come back in the middle of the night. There's too many people around, and we don't want to open up the entrance while there's all these people. And so I made the plan to go up there during the night. And I got up at 3 a.m. and I was going to drive up there and go get into the entrance. And this lady got into my truck and she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm going up to go into the mountain and find the Telos. And she said, you know, I did that and I never came back. And I thought, boy, that's a weird statement. You're here in my truck. And I looked up and she was gone. And I was like, holy crap. And then my mind went, oh, you promised Vicki you'd come home. And I thought, oh, geez, if she never came back, I better not do this. So I got out of my truck and I didn't go up to the Telos, the entrance. And that was on my trip when, just before Saint Germain, just before the appearance of Saint Germain. And so the Telos, it's interesting, there is a portal inside Mount Shasta that is a direct connection to Venus. And so through that portal, people can go back and forth from Earth to Venus. And the Telos are actually Venusians who are here to help planet Earth. And that's why Rob Potter always has his Venusian conference every summer up at Mount Shasta. And I would go and speak at that. And but there was a lot of good information about the Telos. And 2 years ago, the reptilians invaded Mount Shasta, and or maybe it was 3 years ago, and they were going to invade Venus. And I was told by Saint Germain, you need to depossess the whole mountain. And I was like, holy cow, there's 2,000 reptilians in the mountain. And I had only gotten rid of 40 out of Kim Jong-un before, and so it seemed like a very big, almost overwhelming job for me to do. And they had forced the Telos out of the mountain. They had to go back to Venus, and some of them escaped over to some sanctuaries in the Tetons. Mm-hmm. And so when I went there, Saint Germain guided me through the whole thing. I was supposed to go to Lake Shasta, go into the caves, because the caves are actually an extension of the mountain of Mount Shasta, and do a clearing, depossessing the mountain, literally, of all these demons. And I took 6 people with me that I trusted completely and that they would do with me this process, because I needed, you know, a quorum, at least a half a quorum of people. A quorum is 12, and I had 6 people. And I was told to get at least 6 people by Saint Germain, and we did a depossession of the mountain, literally. And the mountain was very dark. There was fires, there was smoke, there was all kinds of crap all going on at the time. And when we did the clearing, we came out of the caves and looked up, and the mountain was visible, but it was all violet. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And so, you know, the violet flame transmutes energy, it changes it into good energy. And so it was an amazing experience. But that's been my experience. And the Telos have since returned to Mount Shasta. Do you have a question? No. So, quite an interesting experience. Any other questions? The Telos are an interdimensional, good, God-fearing, God-following people.
So are they going to help, though, humanity with our...
They've been here to help us.
Yeah.
And they are now returned and helping us again. In fact, the mountain, this last year, well, this last summer, the mountain went violet again. And it was because the Telos were extending out their meditations to the earth. And so, yes, they are helping us.
That's so cool.
And what's the other question?
Have you communicated with the beings who live at Mount Shasta, either the Telos or the fairies, since you last went there?
Yes. The fairies first came to me, believe it or not, here in St. George, right over on the other side of the river here. I would walk my dog down St. James Street over there, and a fairy appeared to me and told me a man that was very important on helping clear the planet of the toxins and chemicals would be coming in, and the cabal had actually cast spells upon him. And this fairy said, you need to read these 3 books. She gave me the names of the books, and I had a pen and a piece of paper in my pocket, and so I wrote down the names of the books, and I bought them through Ullman Publishing, which is a company that publishes a lot of witch books and witchcraft and wizardry books. And she told me to read these 3 books, and there would be 3 spells I would be attracted to, and I had to dispel them or undo the spells on this guy. So about a month later, I was walking my dog again, and 3 fairies appeared to me, and they told me they thanked me for reading the books. They said he would be coming in the next day to the office, and I was in this office next door at the time. And anyway, he actually did come in, and I saw this cocoon energy of darkness around him, and then another energy that was basically weakening his nervous system. He was a big, burly, strong guy by the name of Kirk Bradley. That's one of his dreams that he had. He is an engineer, and he actually worked for NASA and helped put in Star Wars. You know, a lot of people don't even know about this because it was top secret, but they built this missile system up on satellites, and they could shoot down all the Soviet missiles if we got in a fight. And that's why Gorbachev finally gave up, and the Iron Curtain fell, and, you know, communism fell, at least in the Soviet Union, and it became, you know, the Baltic republics, and they all, you know, embraced, you know, the Western thought and capitalism and stuff. But anyway, so I hope that answers that question. But it's interesting, all the things I've gone through, and you know, believe it or not, Saint Germain, after I wrote The Next Step in Human Evolution, he sent me down to South America to heal Father Gabriel Mejia, who is a man who was a Jesuit, a Clarited priest, and it was fascinating because he had been pummeled in the face by one of his students, one of his people in his facilities. He was only 13, and the kid, when I talked to him, he didn't even remember doing it because the demon had possessed him and taken him over and had him pummel him with a rock. And the demon had gone out of the child into Father Gabriel right here in his third eye. And he was damaged so bad, and he wasn't healing. And so they sent me down there, and I was told to bring a vial of the oil from the Garden of Gethsemane that I'd got in Israel, and take it with me. And the moment I put that oil on his forehead, the demon came out and started attacking me. And I looked over at the other two fathers that I told, this demon's going to come out and he'll probably attack me. I want you guys to do your exorcism thing. And so I looked at the two fathers. They could see me getting attacked by this demon. I said, please help me. And so they started doing their depossessing thing. So the demon went over and started attacking them. And then I was able to make a cylinder of light and grab a hold of the demon, throw him in the cylinder of light, and I sealed him up with the seal of Solomon with the 72 names of God made of gold and silver, until they accept the redemption of God or the love of God. And that was that was my first true depossession of a demon back in 2015. So, but Father Gabriel was so grateful because he started to heal once we got rid of the demon. And he asked me to stay and learn, and he would teach me everything about what he was doing to help these abused children. I don't know if you know the story of what happened in Colombia, but in 1984, George H. Bush, who was the vice president at the time, told our CIA to go down and make cocaine and bring it into the United States and sell it to the bankers, because that's where all the money is. And so our CIA went down there and they started the cocaine wars, and they hired Pablo Escobar he was a businessman, and Father Gabriel had taken confession from him. That's why I know all this, is Father Gabriel told me all about the information. And but anyway, they would fly it into Arkansas, and they promised Clinton that he'd be the next president after George H. Bush if he would just keep his mouth shut and let him bring all the cocaine into Arkansas and then distribute it throughout the United States. So that's the story there, and you can look it up. It's true and real, and but it's been covered up like most all the diabolical stuff everybody's doing. So anyway, kind of interesting stuff. I guess I'm going backwards here. Okay, so I'll go forward. I guess I gotta hit it with the right button since my clicker's not working. So, thank you for coming. I know it's 10:30. Does anybody here have questions?
What kind of water filtrations do you recommend?
I recommend these up there because they will filter water even out of the Virgin River, removing even the giardia and crap, you know. And so if we ended up having to get our water from the river, those work very well to clear it, and they're, we've got a bunch of the parts. I think we've only got 2 of the main filters, but anyway, that's the ones I recommend. Go ahead.
Just
just along those same lines, I've been drinking the bottled water from Zion